In the evenings, Kadri stood at the kitchen window and watched the block opposite fill from the bottom up. At 5, there were only a few lit squares, yellow and weak in the blue concrete. By 6, the first-floor kitchens had all come on, then the rooms above them, then one window on the 7th floor that always lit before the rest, as if the woman there had been waiting with her hand on the switch. From their own 10th floor flat, the building looked close enough to touch and far enough that every family became a pattern. 2 bright windows together, 1 dark, then 3 more. Curtains crossing light. A man leaning his forearms on a sill to smoke. The blue pulse of television over shoulders and plants. Her grandmother said it was rude to stare. "I'm counting," Kadri said, "so count something with an answer." Her grandmother was peeling potatoes into a chipped enamel bowl. The peels fell in one strip when the knife caught a good rhythm. Steam had left a skin on the window above the radiator. If Kadri leaned close, she could smell wool drying, the iron tang of the pipes, dill from somebody else's soup in the shaft. Across the courtyard, a window went dark on the 4th floor. 2 seconds later, another came on beside it. Kadri kept her finger on the sill and moved it once to the left, once to the right, as if there were a rule and she had almost found it. At school the next morning everything was in Russian before she had taken off her scarf. Russian in the cloakroom, Russian in the corridor, Russian from the chemistry teacher, Russian from the boys throwing each other against the gym doors. Her own Russian was good enough to keep from being noticed for it, which was the main use of being good enough. When the teachers called her by surname, it flattened the vowels out of her name and made her sound temporary. In physics, she drew little rows of squares in the margin of her notebook and marked them dark or light. On the tram home, she kept doing it with the windows of the blocks along Narva Monte. Her mother, seeing the notebook at dinner, said, "If this is mathematics now, thank God! Last month it was clouds. Clouds were also mathematics." Good. Then maybe mathematics can wash the dishes. On Friday, her mother came home with the calculator wrapped in a dish towel. She did not announce it. She set her handbag on the chair, unwrapped the towel on the table, and there it was, longer than Kadri had imagined, gray-bodied, heavier at one end where the battery sat. The faceplate was dark smoked plastic until her mother slid the switch and green digits lifted through it all at once. 0. Kadri had seen scientific calculators before, once in a glass case, once in the hands of a man at the Polytechnic who had let nobody touch it. She had never seen one that could keep a program. Mati sold it, her mother said. His institute got newer ones. For how much? Less than it should have been, more than it should have been. Her mother took off her coat. "Don't ask me again, because then I have to hear myself say it." On the back of the manual, in purple ink, someone had written MK61. The manual itself was in Russian, stapled, translated in places from somewhere further west. The diagrams looked copied from another book and then copied again. The machine called itself, with total seriousness, a microcalculator. Kadri touched one key, then another. The travel was short and definite, not soft like the school accounting machines. There were 2 shift keys, one blue, one yellow, and a logic to the lettering she could feel before she understood it. The display blanked for a breath after certain operations, then returned with its answer as if it had gone away to think in private. "Say thank you," her grandmother called from the armchair. "I haven't even breathed on it yet. Then thank me while you're ahead." For a week Kadri did little else. She read the manual in bed under the blanket with a flashlight, translating the Russian headings into Estonian in pencil on scrap paper. She learned that the machine preferred reverse Polish notation, which felt to her less like mathematics than like hearing a sentence in the right language after days of static. First the things, then what happened to them. No need to wrap them in brackets like parcels for customs. The manual's examples were earnest and bizarre. Area of a circle, trigonometric function values, a pseudo-random number between 0 and 1. The command names looked military. Jumps, indirect jumps, conditional jumps, stop, return. Her mother watched her punching keys through breakfast and said, "If it can do your algebra, good. If it can peel potatoes, even better. It can generate random numbers. Can it generate sausage? Not with 105 steps." Her mother made a sound that could have been a laugh if she had not already been late. At school, Kadri carried the calculator in the inside pocket of her coat, wrapped again in the dish towel. Twice she took it out in the back row during literature, and once in assembly, where a district official was speaking about productive youth and international friendship in a voice that made every noun sound furnished by the state. The calculator sat warm from her body in her palm. She keyed in tiny tests just to watch the blank green pause after x at y, after e at x, after functions that had no business being so slow. Slowness did not humiliate it. The machine took the time it took. In the stairwell after classes, Maxim from 10B saw the corner of it under the towel. "What is that?" he said, already reaching. Kadri turned her shoulder. "A calculator." No kidding. He was one of the boys who always smelled faintly of solder because his father repaired televisions at home. His Estonian was worse than her Russian, which gave their conversations a kind of mutual mercy. "Programmable?" he asked. She nodded. "My cousin had a back 334, he said. It could play lunar lander. Slow as a funeral." "This is slower." He grinned. "Good. Then it's advanced." For the first time she let someone else hold it. Maxim pressed the weight into his palm, respectful at once. He hit the CX key and handed it back. "What will you make?" Kadri said the answer before she had fully thought it. "The building." He looked over her shoulder toward the stairwell window, where the opposite block stood in afternoon gray. "Our building?" "The windows." "That's not what calculators are for. That's why." He laughed, short and surprised. "If you make it work, show me." The first programs she wrote were bad. One ate half the memory and returned the same digit forever. One froze because she had sent the machine jumping back to itself like a dog chasing a bicycle wheel. One produced a beautiful column of impossible decimals for reasons she never located and copied into her notebook before clearing it, out of respect. Then she stopped trying to make the machine describe windows and made it behave like them. There were 8 visible windows across on the middle floors if she ignored the stairwell glass. 8 digits fit the display before the exponent pushed in. That was enough. She gave each dark window a 0 and each lit one a 1. She entered a row as a number, broke it apart by division and remainder, made the machine compare neighboring digits, then store the next state in registers before rebuilding the line. A lit window with no company died. 2 neighbors kept one alive. 3 made another one come on. Not the real building's rule, probably. A better rule. The first time it ran correctly she had keyed in 0011100000 from the 7th floor opposite, pressed start, and watched the display hesitate, clear, and come back as 00010100. Not a calculation, an answer. She ran it again. 0000000000. She laughed aloud in the kitchen. Her grandmother, sewing a button back on one of Kadri's school blouses, looked up over her glasses. "Has it told you the future?" "No." "Better." then tell it not to keep me awake with triumph. Kadri tried another row, then another. If she seated a single lit window, it vanished in one generation. If she seated 3 together, the middle one persisted and the others peeled away. If she made a crooked shape, the shape walked. Across the green display tiny neighborhoods were born, held for a breath, and disappeared under rules nobody could argue with because she had written them herself. At dinner her mother said, "Show me what it does." Kadri entered a row from the opposite building as it stood that minute, 1 kitchen on, then none, then 3, then 1. The machine returned a different line. And this means what? This means if the windows obeyed my rule, this is what they would do next. Her mother chewed, thinking about whether this was foolish in a way she needed to prevent. Do they? No. Then you've invented a worse building. Her grandmother snorted into her tea. Kadri should have been offended. Instead, she wrote "worse building" in the margin of her notebook. After that, the calculator changed the block opposite. She could not look at the windows without seeing possible next lines. A kitchen would go dark, and she would think of a carry into the next register. 3 lit rooms in a row looked unstable. 1 alone near the edge of a floor looked doomed. She began recording real evening rows in a school exercise book. Date, time, weather, visible pattern. Not because she thought the machine would ever predict the actual families. Because the real building now seemed to be running on a buried rule the way the calculator did, and she preferred that possibility to the ordinary one. Maxim came over on Sunday to see it. He stood in the kitchen in his socks because her grandmother refused street shoes past the hall mat and looked younger for it. Kadri ran the window program for him while he leaned one hip against the radiator and watched the display. "Again?" he said. She ran it again. "It dies fast." "Only if you start with bad neighborhoods, like ours." The joke landed crookedly and then settled. From the armchair her grandmother said, in Estonian, "Tell your friend there are biscuits if he is not too Soviet to eat them." Kadri translated. Maxim answered in his own clumsy Estonian, "Thank you, I am only medium Soviet." Her grandmother laughed so hard she had to put down the teacup. After he left, Kadri found one of the calculator keys had a shine where his thumb had been. It pleased her more than it should have. In November, the electricity went out over the whole district for 23 minutes. The block opposite vanished. Their own kitchen glass turned black enough to throw back the room. Her grandmother's white hair, the enamel bowl, the calculator under Kadri's hand with its display dark. Somewhere below, in the courtyard, somebody cursed in Russian, and another voice answered from higher up. Then the building became only shape and cold. Her grandmother lit a candle and put it in a tea glass. "Now count," she said. There was nothing to count. For the first time in months, Kadri could not see the rows she had been teaching herself to read. The opposite block was not pattern or answer or even separate families. It was one black piece. When the power came back, the windows returned badly coordinated, all at once and then not at once. 1 kitchen, 5 rooms, the blue square of a television, a corridor light, darkness again where somebody had gone to the fuse box. The calculator, restarted too soon, showed nonsense until she switched it off and waited the required half-minute as the manual instructed. "Temperamental," her mother said. "It remembers being interrupted," Kadri said. Her mother looked at her. "That is not how calculators remember." But when the machine came back, blank and obedient, Kadri was not so sure. She rewrote the window program from the notebook that night to be safe. Then she copied it again, smaller, Onto squared paper she folded into the manual, not because she expected loss, because the possibility had acquired edges. Snow came late and dirty. The stairwell windows grew ferns of ice in the corners. At school, the district official was replaced by another district official, identical except for eyebrows. Somebody in Maxim's building got a better antenna, and on clear nights a Finnish music program flickered blue in one upper window across the yard. You could tell it was not Moscow by the color alone. One evening her grandmother fell asleep in the chair before the news. It was not an emergency. She had simply gone soft with tiredness, one hand open on the armrest, glasses low on her nose. The sewing basket sat on the floor beside her, with a shirt cuff pinned but unfinished. Her mother, working late, would not be back for another hour. Kadri did not wake her. She sat at the table with the MK61 and entered the row of visible windows opposite. On the display the digits came back green and patient. She ran the rule once, then again. A shape formed, held, broke, and reformed somewhere one place over. She thought of the power cut, of the half-minute of required waiting, of the way the machine forgot everything unless she wrote it down. In the dark glass over the sink she could see both buildings at once, the real one across the yard, squares of yellow and blue, their own kitchen behind her, and, smaller than either, the calculator display laid over both like a strip of lit windows, her grandmother's white head in the chair, the chipped enamel bowl on the sill, her own bent head above the green bar. She entered the current row one last time and let the machine answer. Across the courtyard, on the 7th floor, the woman who was always first turned off her kitchen light. Kadri counted the lit squares again before she moved, 1 on the 3rd floor, 3 together above the stairwell, the television blue one near the roof, their own kitchen in the glass, faint but there. Then she reached over and switched off theirs. The calculator remained a green bar in the dark for a breath, then nothing.